What's up, guys? Rogue9 here, and welcome to the Hot Breach podcast. We are now on episode 35. That's well over halfway towards a year. We're getting on, guys.
Yeah, it's crazy. We have what's really, I don't know if this is a good thing or bad thing, but we haven't missed an episode since last summer, which was Paris, and that means that every Monday, every single one of us has been available to do this.
I think for the invitational Christmas. Really?
Invitational, yeah. Well, no, we did do Christmas.
Yeah,
didn't
we did Christmas. We all turned up.
We moved the day for New Year's, but yeah, the invitational.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But other than us being on like literally at Siege events, we have not missed a single event.
Yeah, or occasionally when basically our live stream of the podcast would overlap with a Pro League event or final, as it's kind of silly people coming to watch us talk about Siege when like a major event is actually being streamed at the same time. So that's the only time that we've kind of missed out on a week. But other than that, we've been really consistent. It's really good stuff.
Yep.
This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Moot. Moot is a fantastic online community platform for gamers, and it has specific lounges for loads and loads of different games. And if it doesn't have a lounge for the specific game that you love, you can always request it. In the Rainbow Six Siege Lounge, you can browse the news section and see what's going on with the game, share your fan art, or just see the other community creations. You can browse the latest memes, find yourself some new teammates, and much more besides. Posts on the platform are rated with a simple up or down vote, which means the best posts will always rise to the top to gain your attention.
Moot is also available on mobile devices completely free, and using the iOS or Android app is an especially convenient way to find those new teammates before you head into your next match. You can either create your own post by selecting which platform you play on, PC, PS4 or Xbox, whether you have a microphone and what modes you wish to play, or just respond to someone else looking to team up. There's no need to solo queue ever again.
So if you want to try out Moot, go ahead and check out the links in the video description. There are specific links for iOS and Android devices, and for the desktop version too. Thanks again to Moot for sponsoring this episode.
So, Siege news this week. Let's start off with that, and I think there's not really a lot of big news, big changes, but one thing that I think is worth mentioning and is really great to see is that the anti-cheat MMR modifier has been reactivated. So that was something that was supposed to come at the beginning of this season, and the plan is basically that whenever an account has been found out to be cheating, every game they have been involved in as a player gets wiped off the score sheets, basically. So if you played against them and lost MMR, you get that reinstated. If you played against them and won MMR, that gets cancelled out. And basically anyone who played with them or anyone who played against them has the entire sort of impact of that cheating account wiped out completely. I personally think that's a great system to see. It had to be deactivated for a little while because we remember when that went live, there was a bit of an issue, and it ended up taking away thousands of MMR points overnight from certain accounts, which I still smile at.
It was funny.
But yeah, that's back now. So let's talk about that a little bit. What are you guys' thoughts?
It's been great. I haven't actually received any yet. And I know that I have to play against hackers every time I lose, pretty much. So I think it is. I agree with you. It's a great system. It's nice to see it working properly. This is a big step towards stopping boosting. I mean, surely that these people who get caught and banned for boosting don't get their charms, right? Like I know that sounds like such a superficial little thing, but like if we take away all that, then I think that, eventually boosting will be looked at like, why would I waste my money on that? It's just going to get reversed.
I mean, we've kind of had that for a while now. So the whole being banned for getting boosted by a cheater, that's been active for several seasons now. The addition basically now is that the impact that players who play against the cheater have is also being rolled back. So yeah, the whole point of that whole ban for being boosted by a cheater was, yes, you get banned for, what is it, like 6 weeks or something, so you miss half the season, and then you also get all of your MMR rolled back, and you do not get a charm based on whatever rank you reached while being boosted by a cheater. So we've had that in effect for quite a while, and it must have had like a small effect, because really, if a cheating account is banned, like the whole thing, we've had cheating accounts getting banned for a long time now, but the problem was with accounts getting hacked, there was a really almost unlimited amount of free accounts being traded online, and cheaters could just roll through one account after the other without any cost to them, so they didn't care. And that's why boosting became a thing, because sure, if you're playing with a cheat, your account gets banned and you can't play with that account again, and obviously you lose your rank that you achieve and everything that's attached to that. But boosting other players, well, those players weren't cheating, so they used to be able to keep their rank, keep their fake achievement, up until we had this sort of change where we have now a rollback. If you get caught playing with a cheater on their team, not obviously getting matched up randomly because you're solo queuing, that is a different matter. You're not doing it on purpose, right? It's if you queue together with them multiple times in order to achieve a false rank, that gets rolled back, and you do get a temporary ban for that. And now we have this sort of system in place where nobody is affected. So if you play against a cheater in ranked, it's frustrating still to lose that match, but in theory, once that cheater is identified, whether they get identified just through the system, through the anti-cheat system in general, or whether you or other players report that account, once they get banned, all of the matches they've played, all of the people that they've basically cheated on and stolen MMR from, they all get their points back. That's where we are now.
I know I've been a little bit quiet. Sorry, I've been speaking with my chat. It's brilliant for the overall health of Siege. As we discussed on previous podcasts, a lot of the cheating going on isn't just people doing it for their own individual accounts. It's them doing it to sell that account onto someone else. And if they can bottom out that market, because no one wants to buy a diamond account that's going to be gone in 2 weeks. I mean, I'm not sure how much they were going for. Let's just pluck a figure out of the sky, say $500. Why would you pay $500 and get one of these accounts when you're only going to have the kudos of being diamond for like a couple of weeks? So overall, it's a brilliant thing. I know that they said that they were testing this in the background for a while before it went live. Obviously, there were some sort of hiccups there when they set it live, which got quite well memed in the community, because there were people winning games and and ranking down. But obviously, it looks as though they've fixed it now, which is a good thing.
Did you see what I did with this whole thing?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
there are so many people. I almost retweeted it, and well, just for people who are watching that might not be familiar. So when you get MMR back, there's a notification that comes up on the screen that says, basically it shows like your rank and then your MMR and then what it's going to, and they give you a message to tell you were identified playing against a cheater, so you're receiving this many points. And there are rules in place. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but you're not going to hit your highest rank because of this. It won't take you any higher than your highest. So if you've only if the highest you've been is Plat 1, it's not going to take you to Diamond just based on this alone. I believe that is in place.
No, why? In theory, if you say you play to Plat 1 and then you theoretically play 10 matches in a row against cheaters, theoretically, and then the next day they've all been banned, then basically you're getting back the MMR you lost. So yes, actually, yeah, you are right. You're not gaining anything. You're just getting back what you theoretically lost.
It won't take you above your highest MMR rating, is my understanding of how it works. So at least that was the wording at one time. But anyway, so what I did was I took one of the screenshots that somebody had, and I photoshopped a copper emblem and then a diamond emblem. So it looked like it took me from copper to diamond. And then I put, yes, now I can finally make videos about how to hit diamond. And there were people in there that, well, first of all, there's just always people who are like, you're no better than a gold. You're barely gold. Get flaked. and then there's people who are like, you serious? Congrats, man. That's awesome. And then, so I thought about retweeting it because there were enough people in there that were like taking it serious and retweeting it and say, guys, this was Photoshopped. This is a joke.
It was so badly photoshopped as well because you just wrote the number over the top of the original number.
I did that on purpose. I was like, I don't want this to look, I don't want anybody to mistake this as real. So I'm going to make this blatantly. Yeah.
Yeah, that was quite funny. Now I'm wondering, you've got me wondering, is it possible? I mean, technically, if you were Diamond before and then you had a run of matches against cheaters where you went all the way back down to Copper, and then they all got banned, you could, in theory, have that scenario come up where you get 2,800 MMR given back to you. It could happen, but obviously you'd have to be Diamond in the first hand, and then you'd have to lose against cheaters again and again and again. So yeah, that was quite funny though. So yeah, that system is back now, and really, I mean, I guess we've now reached a point where the only point in cheating or playing with a cheater is to grief players. And even then, I mean, I suppose you can still get frustrated playing against cheaters when you lose that match, but you know at least that once that cheating account gets dealt with, there is no impact to your seasonal progression, there's no impact to your MMR, you still get the same points and you'll still achieve the same rank you were meant to achieve even without playing against cheaters. So really, what's the point in what really is the point in cheating now or playing with cheaters?
You know, that's a good question. And you know, we had an instance pop up the other day where I was actually playing with Grief Drums, and we played against what I know in my mind was you know, somebody who had walls. He was really being incognito with Hereford. He wasn't shooting through floors or anything, but he was. Now I saw enough to where I feel 99.99% sure the dude had walls. And then within a couple hours, both Grief Drums and one of the other guys that I was playing with got notifications saying that they were rewarded MMR back. And one of the guys said he saw his name go across the board that he got banned. Does it happen that quick? Like, is that, because that's kind of crazy. I mean, and that was you talk about a feel good moment. Nothing's worse than losing in round 9 to a guy that has walls. And then, you know, to get that notification across your screen, like that feels good.
That's one of the things I was going to say, because when you report someone now, it's report for toxic behavior, which could be, you know, it could be one of a number of things. Obviously, one of the most obvious is that you suspect someone's hacking, but you don't get any feedback from that. If, say, someone is, I don't know, racially abusing you in voice or is hacking, obviously, other than that MMR rollback, you don't know if that feature has done anything. And you don't know, like, people could just be using it on everyone. You could have certain users that are just reporting everyone they play against that's really good. I suppose they must have some kind of mechanism in the background whereby they're put on a timeout or a cooldown, people that are just reporting all the time.
I mean, that's a whole different topic onto itself. What does the in-game reporting mechanism really do? And, I mean, that's been questioned ever since Siege has been around. There's always been people questioning it. And in fact, you go back far enough, there's always that toxic person or cheater who will say, go ahead and report me. I get reported every match. Nothing happens, right? So I don't know how that mechanism works. Does it collect a number and then eventually flag an account for manual review? How does it work? I don't know. I think the safest method, especially, I mean, obviously, if someone's using voice chat to say nasty things, I don't think you can capture that with the in-game reporting. The thing you need to do is get a recording of that and either send it in through the Ubisoft support channels on the support website.
I've actually done that. I've gone through that process before, and they give you feedback the whole time. At the end of it, they're not going to come and say, you're right, you're 100% right, we're banning them right now. Turn on your PS4 and you're going to see that name come across the screen as banned. Do it right now. Let's do it together. Here, you want to push the button? You know what I mean? Like that, they're not going to do that. But what they did come back and say is that, yes, the footage you provided clearly looks like something wrong. Something is wrong here. We're forwarding this to our I forget what team they said, and it will be addressed. So and that's good. So if you do get footage of a cheater and you go through the right channels, I mean, if you have 100% proof, there's going to be something that happens. I promise you that.
Yeah, cheating, toxic behavior, whether that's in text chat is really easy because that is captured anyway. So if you type anything into the text chat, Ubisoft can look that up afterwards. And we've seen that before. We've seen what was it? When the automatic filtering was introduced and people started getting auto-banned and then would say, well, all I said was nickel or something stupid like that. That was one of the words that everyone was tweeting about. All I said was nickel. And then you'd get someone like Epi go through the records and go, no, actually you said something quite different and you're banned rightfully, and you know exactly why you've been banned. So fact is that anything that goes into text chat is logged for certainly a certain amount of time and can be reviewed. Anything over voice chat, I think a recording is really helpful.
I've got someone in my chat here, Rogue.
Ooh.
The Punisher.
Oh.
Yeah, I've got one. And I thought I'd bring it up because it's right on topic. And he says what can be done about the YouTube channels that basically exist only to show hacks. And they're basically a marketing thing for people selling those hacks. Yeah. So I wondered what you two think about that, because I've obviously got some opinions on that too.
I think something that I've heard of game publishers and developers doing before is copyright striking for every video that does that. And then, I mean, within 3 strikes, you can delete a channel. You can go to YouTube, you can go to Google as a company and say, hey, we don't approve of this, the way this is using our intellectual material, whether it's music or visual content from a video game. And they can shut channels like that down if they want to. I think long time ago, now this is months and months ago, possibly a year or more, I actually once approached Epi and asked him about that. And he was saying that at the moment, he didn't really give much of an explanation, but he did say that Ubisoft are not looking to use that as a tool. They are not going to target channels that do that in that way, even though probably they have the ability to. And I guess he didn't explain why. I would have to sort of speculate there that maybe it's sort of a PR thing, because you can't really win because you kind of take a measure like that and take down someone's channel. There are people who will hold that against you, right? So, and what if that channel then gets legal representation and the whole court thing comes into question, and then they're claiming that it's fair use of what they're doing because it's transformative, and then there's a legal battle around it. I mean, it's possibly just that it's more of a risk than it's worth. But yeah, I mean, whether or not Ubisoft want to use that, there is that option that I've heard of used in the past by other companies. And sort of more maybe on a more basic level, like if we as a community want to take matters into our own hands slightly, like in YouTube, there are the 3 dots, whether you're on a mobile device or on your PC, that you can use when watching a video. You can click on that video and say, do not show me this again. And then there's usually an option of tell us why. And then you say, I don't want to see videos from this channel. And that's it. That video will never show up, or videos from that channel will never show up in your homepage feed again. And then just don't go and watch them. Because sure, there's going to be an element of the community that will still go and watch those videos of blatant cheating, blatant hacking. But really, one thing we can all do is stop watching them. Because if you create a channel and you only get a small number of views, because as a whole, the community refuses to watch that kind of toxic content and promote and support that guy who's basically just trying to sell his cheats, I think that can have an effect. It's like just if we all do our little bit towards that, it will have an effect as long as most of the community join in.
Yeah, I do agree with you. The company that used to do this a lot was Activision with Call of Duty, and it was people that created glitch videos, and they would strike them down. And that's quite a different topic in a way, because glitch videos is something in the game that kind of the developers haven't quite patched out, whereas we're talking about people who are creating third-party software to exploit the game and create hacks within it. I agree with you to a certain extent that if you don't watch the content, then it isn't going to get promoted to you. But I think there's that sort of curiosity as to what are these people gaining. So people are interested to see what the hackers can see and what tools that they have at their disposal, what they're playing against. And I wonder as well whether a hacker that creates these YouTube videos to sell their software, whether they particularly care about the success of their channel that much, although it is a good advertising tool. Someone who is interested in buying those hacks will search it out anyway. They won't rely on an algorithm to necessarily recommend it onto a homepage, though it is going to increase their market. I think, on this, Ubisoft could act a bit harder and start taking down those videos and saying it is against our terms of service to create that type of content. But is that a sort of Pandora's box you open and then say, where do they go next? Do they start taking down glitch videos and any video that doesn't have a positive message about the game? If you make a video criticizing loot boxes, I know it's a stretch, but once you sort of open that door and walk through it, where does that end? So I can understand that argument. That being said, I would take it down.
It's a little strange. Couple of things from my chat that I'd like to just kind of clear up here. I'm getting a lot of comments about people saying that they've submitted stuff about mouse and keyboarders, that they've submitted stuff with people with macros. That's not what I'm talking about as far as proof. And I'm not saying that you guys didn't have proof, but here's what whenever I've submitted clips of hackers and I'm showing proof, I'm talking like they are like hip firing me across the map because they have auto aim on and they're doing it through walls. Like it's 100% impossible for them to be doing anything other than hacking. That's what I'm talking about as proof. I'm not talking about me showing a clip of a guy who may have traced me through a wall and, I know he's cheating, but he's being incognito. No, I'm talking like blatant proof. So just to clear that up, I mean, mouse and keyboard on console you're never going to prove that from a gameplay clip. Never. And Ubisoft would be insane to ban somebody based off of a clip that I sent them of somebody's gameplay alone and said, this person's using mouse and keyboard. I don't care how high their sensitivity is. I don't care how good their aim is. You have to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that person's cheating if you're going to ban them.
Yeah. That being said, though, when we had Craig on the podcast, it's Epi, the community developer, he did say when they look at these accounts, it's really clear that they can tell. I'm pretty sure he said that. So if you recorded a clip and it had Joe Blogs and it really looks like he's using mouse and keyboard, but you're saying you can't 100% prove it, but surely on the back end, they can look.
But on what? Like I mean, you'd have to do it statistically.
Yes.
Because I mean, and the only thing you could really do is maybe look at accuracy / headshot percentage. That's the way I would always tell. If you see somebody's headshot percentage on console is in the high 40s, low 50s, I would be almost guaranteeing you that they're using a mouse and keyboard because you're approaching pro league PC player headshot percentages once you get into there. So I think my headshot percentage on console, I want to say, is around 37%. So
I think they've got other ways of looking at it though, Flanked. I'm pretty. Didn't Craig say that on our? He said it's really clear.
I don't think so, man. I don't think so.
Okay.
Maybe I could be wrong. I don't know. I don't remember him saying that at all. I remember him saying that they can't tell. They can't tell from like, they can't tell that people are using them. That's the problem because keeping up with the firmware, the way that the adapter works, they can't tell from like from that end. But also statistical. I mean, what would make sense there? I don't know.
Yeah, mouse and keyboard on console is just that sort of pervasive topic, isn't it? And it is cheating, but it's cheating basically with hardware by using a different input system than other players. So you're not actually modifying the way the game plays. You can't see through walls. You've not got an aimbot. It's a prickly topic, and yeah, I have no solution for it, honestly. Another comment that came up with me, this is, it's also related, I suppose, sort of to sniping, to cheating. and it's just a topic of stream sniping. And I've seen a lot of comments on Twitter recently, and I think that's maybe also worth quickly discussing.
Yeah, sure.
Stream sniping in Siege. I struggle to think of other games where stream sniping is as effective as it is in Rainbow Six Siege. Maybe CSGO? Maybe when you can see which angles they're holding and where they are and what they're doing. But think about Siege, like in the prep phase or even before in the operator selection phase, you know exactly where they're going. You know which operators they're picking. You can hear their comms, so you can hear when they're pushing, when they've found you, when they're doing anything. Even if you kill the person who you're stream sniping, who you're watching, then if they're not careful, you can still watch their cams. You can still watch them spectating team members. Like the amount of information you can gain by watching an opponent's stream and then using that information against them, I would struggle to find or think of one other game where you get that much valuable information.
Battleship.
Yes, the big esport and the Twitch hit, always up there in all the charts. Battleship. That one. No, it's obviously
it's the card games like Hearthstone and stuff like that. So that's it.
Okay. That's actually, no, I'll take that. That's very helpful if you can see someone else's deck. No, true. But sort of from a first-person shooter perspective, it is unparalleled how effective it can be.
So the way that Apex does it is you just click a button and it changes your name. So when people, because sort of how it works is, if you're in game and they see get flanked and they go, oh God, that guy's a streamer, they go over and see if he's streaming. And then from that, they can then watch his every move. But if it doesn't say get flanked, then they won't think to do that, will they?
Yeah.
So that's just such an easy solution.
Yeah.
One of the things, but even if you do stream snipe in Apex, okay, you know where one of the teams is. Big whoop, right? There's still a whole bunch of other players on that map. Unless you can actually get over there quickly enough, I think it is really hard to benefit from it, certainly to the degree that you benefit in it for Rainbow Six Siege. I think some of the, like, it's really hard to estimate the impact of it, but you look at some of the tweets. I think it was today or yesterday, Macy J was tweeting, and he said he solo queued to Diamond on PC off stream, and it took him half the time than getting to Diamond on stream with a 5-stack. And it makes no sense whatsoever that solo queuing should be much, much easier than playing with a 5-stack with 4 other competent players. No way should that be easier, and yet it was much easier for him because he didn't stream it.
Do you know one thing that made that harder, Rogue? On Uplay, you used to be able to change your name whenever you wanted.
Yep.
You can change. I would go in regularly and change my name. I'd just pick different action movie heroes and stuff like that. Dutch Schaefer. But now you can only do that once per month. So someone like Macy J, who does stream regularly at quite a high level, people are going to know his name, and as soon as he pops up,
Of course.
because within that sort of pool at the top, there's only a limited number of players he's going to come up against, right? So when they see his name, they will know straight away, those people, that he's a big-time streamer, and they can just head over, and they've got that information to be able to beat him. You know?
And there's so many motivations, I guess. First of all, obviously, you're getting invaluable information, and you can just win the game much more easily than if you're not watching the stream. So there's that. But then, obviously, there's also players who will then record the stream as well, or come in later and take clips out of the stream, and will be recording their own gameplay as they're playing against you. I think I saw Grief Drums tweeting that he actually then found someone else streaming, and they had his stream in the background, and it was so loud that he could actually hear himself in their stream. So it was just this loop of stream sniping where he just could prove, like, this person is watching my stream and using it against me.
A couple things that make it really strong in Siege. First of all, the soft walls, destruction. So if you get a glimpse, this person's in this room and there are soft floors, ceilings, and everything is soft, then that's one thing that makes it strong. The other thing that I would say that makes it strong in Siege is the fact that you have players who on your team who may be dead, and they can be dead for, really 2 minutes and 59 seconds of that round that you're getting ready to play, and they can sit there and watch the stream and make call outs to everybody that's still alive based upon that.
Yep.
That is really what makes it stronger than say like even like a Fortnite or something like that. You think about it, I recognize it can be strong because they're going to know what part of the map you're in, but you're not going to have a teammate there who's literally watching it and making call outs to you unless you're, I guess it's possible, but not as.
Yeah, well said, mate.
Yeah, so it's actually something like I remember in Paris. So basically last August, I asked Alex Remy about it, and I asked him, look, because that was sort of the time that the streamer charms came out. They'd been out just for a little while, and I thought, hey, look, you're pushing this idea of streamers, you're rewarding the streamers, you're promoting them within Siege, like with streaming being such a focus of what you're doing right now. What are the plans, or if any, of dealing with stream sniping? And he seemed a little bit surprised by the concept. So at that time, certainly, it didn't feel as if this is something that is a big topic within sort of the developer team. And maybe it should be, because, I mean, obviously there's always going to be people who say, well, it's your own fault if you're broadcasting your game, and it's only fair that people use it against you, right? At the end of the day, it is cheating, even if the person is opening themselves up to it. And I think it's in Ubisoft's interest to maybe think about something. If it's being able to change your name, anonymizing names, like a streamer mode or something, because it will make streaming just so much more easy, so much more comfortable, and so much more nice to watch as well. Because you think about sort of how effective a player can be when they're being constantly stream sniped. It's just less, and it's going to be a less entertaining, a less successful, and more frustrating stream if you're playing with one hand tied behind your back, basically. And yeah, I think it's worth it for Ubisoft as a company to also think about that, just to sort of improve the ability of the big streamers, or any streamers really.
It can be anybody. You don't even have to be big. Like, here's how bad it is. There are people who at the beginning of the match will type in every player's name that they're going up against into Twitch and see if any of them are streaming or have a Twitch channel. My good buddy Rambino, I mean, bless his heart, he's not a giant streamer. He has usually between 5 and 10 people watching him stream at any given time. He gets stream sniped. It happens because people just type into Twitch Rambino, and there's his Twitch channel. It's the same as his Uplay, and now he's they're watching his stream.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is a problem.
In a past video, or maybe one of our discussions, I had someone comment later on saying, I recently streamed to 5 people, 4 of them were stream sniping me. It's outrageous, right? He had 1 legitimate viewer and 4 people who were just using his stream to gain an advantage, and just. So yeah,
his viewer base exploded.
let me go a little different, right? Siege, in my opinion, is one of the hardest games in the world to stream, and I guess one of the hardest first-person shooters to stream. And I envy people who can stream battle royales and get audiences on it. And I've been streaming a lot of different games recently. I haven't streamed very much Siege at all. Maybe a couple times in the last month I've streamed Siege, been streaming a lot of Division and stuff like that. It's so much more fun. And yeah, granted, I might only get like 20 people who will watch me play the Division compared to 200 or 300 that'll watch me play Siege. But I just can't do it to myself, because here's the thing with Siege. You're always playing against better competition. As you get better, your competition does too. So in Call of Duty, I remember streaming Search and Destroy, and I would even stream GBs. I would stream all types of stuff. And you were playing against competition that was randomized enough to where, you might get smashed one game, but the next game you might just absolutely destroy everybody. And then the next game after that, and then you come back into a tough game. In Siege, every game in ranked is a grind. And yes, sometimes you do come up in those 4-0s, but it's not like in Call of Duty Search and Destroy where you would just be able to pub stomp and just obliterate people for the most part for an entire 4-hour stream. Siege is a grind, man. And maybe it is more so for me, but it's a tough game to stream to begin with.
Yeah, and I think it's just, it is more of a problem than maybe many people even realize. It is so hard to obviously know what percentage of games are being stream sniped, but it is huge. Like you said, there are a whole lot of people that the first thing they will do is check all the names, even if there aren't obviously large and well-known names within the enemy team. They'll just go through all the names, a quick search, and bang, there you go. Okay, we can stream snipe this guy. And I think another thing, not is it only effective in Rainbow Six, it's also just part of the competitiveness of the game. Because you think about Siege is an ultra competitive game to begin with, and that's what brings forward all of these behaviors of people trying to get any advantage they can, whether it's playing with a cheater, reverse smurfing, or whatever you want to call it, basically downranking a second account, then getting together with your buddies who are playing with their regular accounts and cheating the matchmaking system. That is a huge thing, and maybe we can get to that as well, because that was a question in my stream as well. There's obviously stream sniping, using glitches, anything possible to give yourself that advantage and get higher and higher. Because the thing is, I've said this before, and I've said I'm not a fan of it. Like the ranking system we have in Siege is supposed to be a matchmaking system. It's supposed to bring players together who are of the same ability and create competitive, enjoyable games. But the problem we have in Siege is that it's also a reward system, and people will then try to get as high as possible, to get that platinum charm, to get that diamond charm even, by any means necessary. And that's why, yeah, stream sniping is a problem. And it's starting to become a problem for a lot of people playing the game and making it less enjoyable. I saw Snedger, a UK Rainbow Six YouTuber and streamer, tweet today that he's not going to stream Siege anymore for the foreseeable future, just because he got so frustrated playing it on stream, which is a shame. Like, we're losing people. I've not streamed Siege in months now because I got so frustrated doing it, and I was getting stream sniped in casual matches. So.
It's not just stream sniping for me. For me personally, I mean, I can only speak for me, but for me, it's stream. I have separate accounts. I've already figured that out a long time ago, that I cannot stream when I get flanked account. That is just a recipe for disaster. With my emotional state, and you combine that with a couple of stream snipers, it gets real interesting real quick. So I'm not, the stream sniping for me isn't what affects me and how much I enjoy streaming Siege, as much as just the nature of the game allows a lot of backseat gaming to be involved. You know, why didn't you open this wall instead of this wall? Why didn't you just rotate this hatch? Why didn't you use your gadget there? Why are you running red dot? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing, you know, the nature of the game, there's a lot of backseat gaming involved with it, and that kind of affects it as well. For me, it's just not. Yeah, absolutely.
You can get that just in a YouTube video, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes, you know, sometimes you do make a mistake in the moment, obviously, and if you're not under any pressure and you're just viewing it, whether that be a stream or a video, it's so much easier for you to see that retrospectively than to see it in the pressure of a moment when it's 1v3 or something like that.
Mm-hmm. And I think really what this comes down to for me is, you mentioned it, Rogue, that the competitive atmosphere of the game is what creates all of these issues. So if we're coming back to Ubisoft with things like, hey, do what you can to eliminate these possibilities, allowing a streamer mode would be one of those things. Making the matchmaking not as easy to manipulate would be another one of those things. The MMR rollback, to get back to that, is a nice step in the right direction.
Yeah, and let's maybe just reiterate this point, because this is something that it's been going on for so long. The discussions around this have been going on for so long. Being able to queue up with vastly different ranked accounts, coppers queuing up with platinums, in order to bring down the average ranking for the team. Because how it works is, basically, you have a team, every player on that team has a rank. The system calculates an average rank for the entire team, and then it matches that team to another team that has the same average rank, right? So you have average gold teams playing against average gold teams. But if you have one team that is gold 2s and 3s and maybe a gold 1, and then you have a team that is a plat 1, a plat 2, a plat 3, and 2 coppers, they're not the same quality, especially if those two coppers are actually purposefully ranking down those accounts. They're actually really good. And it's just ultra frustrating. I still remember the last time I played a ranked game and we came up against a team and the best player on their team was the Copper 4. Like he was carrying the team and he was supposedly ranked Copper 4. What? Super annoying, super frustrating. And you'd almost think that this is not rocket science to fix. Right?
Yes,
We've had the suggestions of maybe blocking people from ranking together or joining a queue together and all of those things. What if you just have a system that it calculates the average rank for the team, just averaging out all of the MMR, and then it looks if player 1 is so and so many ranks below the average, disregard that, mark that account as disregard, and just go through all 5 players, look at how many players are significantly below the average, mark them as do not regard, and then recalculate the team MMR based on only the accounts that are left. So if you have 3 platinums and 2 copper 4s queuing up together, the system quickly calculates the average, then it looks, oh, hang on, this player number 3, he is significantly below the average, he is dragging down the average, disregard. Player number 5, he's also copper 4, disregard, recalculate, and this doesn't have to take a long while. This can be done by a machine like in a second or less. Recalculate, okay, so now we have 3 plat players, this is a platinum team, match them against a platinum team, off you go.
Or you could just pick the top 2 players or whatever in any given 5 stack. Either way, it's instantaneous for them to calculate something like that. And
I
just
think
remove...
really the benefit of it is, if you, like, the thing is when initially people started suggesting, let's stop players from teaming up if they're too far apart. Oh, but my best friend moved to a different state and he's copper and I'm platinum and this is the only way we get to stay in touch. Oh, whatever shall we do? And it's like, okay, maybe that's a true story. Maybe. Who knows? And who cares even? Fine. You can still queue together. You can still play ranked together if playing casual is so out of the question for you that you can't stand it. Play ranked together, but be aware that you're going to be playing at platinum level, because the thing is, even if it's a legitimate story of players who are different experience and somehow have managed to end up completely different ranks, even if it's a true story, what you're doing by queuing up together is you're still cheating the matchmaking systems, and the people who are suffering is the opponent team. They're the ones now who come up against you, and you might, as the high-ranked player, you might totally smash them. With the new system, where low ranks are simply disregarded, you can still play with your friend, your long-lost friend, who you never get to see anymore, but you're going to have the matches that are maybe a bit harder for that person to be in, and that's just the compromise you're going to have to put up with if you want to play together at vastly different ranks. It's not optimal if that's a legitimate story, but I would say 98% of the time it's not a legitimate story. Like, people who manage to get all the way down to copper 4 takes a lot of dedication and a lot of lost matches. If you get all the way down there and then suddenly start queuing with a platinum, you're most likely doing it on purpose, and you're just going to get the matches that you actually deserve rather than being able to cheat your way lower. And this is something I feel now we've been saying for season after season after season after season. We need to see this come in, because it's one of the most prevalent cheating mechanisms that we see in ranked, really. And it is cheating. It is flat out cheating, especially when the most skilled and most experienced players on the other team are the actual coppers. That's nonsense. That cannot be.
Yeah, I totally agree. The only time there might be an exception to that is, say, somebody's persuaded a friend to pick up Siege and they're genuinely very experienced and they have a friend that's just got through casual, they've hit level 30 or whatever it is necessary to play ranked, then I could understand there may be like a silver and someone higher. Not the bottom copper, but still, I 100% agree with what you just said, Rogue. It's the perfect solution, because those 2 friends would still be able to play together, but the friend that isn't quite as good, that is new to Siege, instead of bringing down the overall ability of the enemy team, he would be playing against better players because they'll be playing against the level of the best players on their team, which would be platinum.
And in a way, if it's a legitimate situation like that, we already have that. So if someone is legitimately low silver or maybe bronze and then queues up with a diamond player, they're already going to be playing against high gold, low plat, or whatever it is. So in a way, if there's a legitimately low skill, low experience player with a low rank, they're already going to have a tougher experience playing with their high-ranked friend. What this is going to do, it's just going to make that a bit more extreme still. It just takes what's already happening for legitimate rank diversion and just making it that little bit more extreme so that there is no negative effect on the other team that are maybe ranked together at the same level.
Yeah. And this, like you said, it's kind of frustrating that we're still dealing with this in all honesty. And it really affects console because console, you can create so many accounts for free on one system. That Smurfs on there, and not even want to call them Smurfs as much as just people just create an account to reverse boost and then boost their friends with. And, it sucks on the competitive integrity of this game on console right now is a bit frustrating. You know what I mean? You play a ranked game on console. The first question is probably, is the other team using mouse and keyboard? Second question is probably going to be, are they boosting off of a Smurf? And the third question is, are they going to just DDoS me before I get off of this?
Oh God, that thing.
And then honestly, it's a really bad problem on console. And
how are they picking up IP addresses then to DDoS people?
I don't think they're DDoSing individuals. They're just crashing the whole server. And they can get the IP address of the server easily, and they're just lagging out the whole server. Right. Is my understanding of it. I don't really want to. If you guys want to talk about it, that's fine. I haven't made a video or anything about it because I don't want to make it. I feel like talking about it makes it worse than it already is. But from what I understand on console, it's really bad right now. It's only happened to me once. That I in my time of playing Siege, it's happened once, and that was on PC. But that's it.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't understand how it works, and I don't want to understand how it works, and I certainly don't want to talk about how it works, because even mentioning it just, it will get people interested, and they will then put in effort to find out how it works, and then we're making the problem worse, right? But it is a thing, and it is a known thing right now, that when people are about to lose, they can just crash the server somehow. And to make it even, to add insult to injury, not only are you then disconnected, but then you even get a quit penalty, right? Then you get blocked from playing again because the server thinks you crashed out or you quit on purpose or rage quit or whatever. So you have someone cheat against you, and then you lose MMR because it thinks you lost, and then you get an abandon penalty. It literally is just insult to injury and needs to be addressed as well, for sure.
Before we move off this topic, I saw, maybe it was you, Flanked, a few people have been speaking about this on Twitter, this idea of a solo queue ranked. Man, I would love that, because I don't have a team. I do not have a team I play with. I have the odd friend that when I go on, I play with. And that just, because I've had a few really bad experiences in ranked, it makes me really hesitant to go into ranked. So this idea of just a solo queue where I know I'm not going to be in a team either with like 3 people who are really negative, or against another team that are just a 5 stack, and I'm in a team of just solo queues, to just know that playing field is completely level. That would be another really cool addition with all the other additions that both of you have spoken about in this episode so far. But I think if they implemented all of those things, that would just be a massive boost to the health of the game.
Yeah. There's nothing you can argue against having that apart from queue times. What would it do to the queue times in certain regions? Splitting up sort of the player base like that. And what would happen to players who come in 4 stacks? Would they then really struggle to find that 5th man every time? Would they then end up with queue times that could be 10, 15 minutes or so because no one is going into the main queue as a solo player anymore?
If you made it 2 separate ranks, one solo queue ranked, one party ranked, I still think you would find solo queue players who would switch back and forth. they would probably mostly play solo queue, but then they would want to get that other rank as well. Once they hit diamond on their solo queue and they get diamond there, they're probably going to want to see what they want, what they can get as a group, solo queuing in the group playlist. So if you make it separate playlist or separate ranks between a playlist, then I think, yes, a 4-stack would be the worst possible scenario. Probably would have the longest queue times, but it wouldn't be impossible.
Maybe it would help. I suppose the only way to know is to try it out and see what happens.
Yeah.
But certainly an interesting idea. Now, let's move on to the main topic. This was supposed to be our main topic of discussion today, and we're already almost halfway through the podcast, as we normally do. But as maybe some of you might have noticed, I put out a video sort of towards the end of last week, which I'm quite proud of. It was basically sort of looking at the development history of Rainbow Six Siege, a whole bunch of pre-alpha footage in there, and just really being able to analyze some of the early development ideas. I've had great feedback on that. A lot of players or viewers saying it's the best video I've ever made, which is really flattering. And I think it's maybe worth looking at some of those early concepts and discussing those a little bit, because the Siege that we know now wasn't necessarily planned right from the beginning. In fact, I mean, a video that's quite well known, quite famous by now, is the E3 reveal trailer from 2014, so about a year before the game released. And something that many people have pointed out is that the skins of the operators are pretty generic, and they all kind of look the same. You don't really have the operators that we know today, and even the launch operator's not in there. But something that maybe most people don't know is that the reason is that even when they made the E3 reveal trailer less than sort of 18 months before the final release, they were still working on a class-based system rather than sort of a hero system. So each of the groups, the attackers and defenders, there were 3 different classes. You had a sniper class and an assault class and a blocker class on defense, which would have the barbed wire. So rather than individual unique operators with unique gadgets, it was a class system where everyone could play different classes or even the same class multiple times. What do you guys think about Siege with a class system? How that would have played out? What would the game be without its operators, without its heroes?
Firstly, that video was really amazing. So everyone in my chat, make sure you watch that video on Rogue's channel. It was just an incredible video that shows the complete development history of the game. I'm really glad they went for the hero-based system, because I feel, as you stated in that video quite correctly, that the hero-based system with new operators coming every season added massively to the longevity of this game, where a class-based system perhaps wouldn't have achieved that. Sure, you could have these generalized classes that you went over, point man, marksman, stuff like that, and you could introduce new characters along those lines, but it's a limiting thing. That is a limiting thing to have in the game, to say that we just have these limited classes. Although, of course, at some stage you could create these other classes, intel-based defender, intel-based attacker, what have you. But I feel that they were right to go for the hero-based system. And you're seeing that now. You're seeing that with the expansion of the lore within the game, the biographies of the characters. And I will say, like, I'm not super keen on some of the lore that's in Rainbow Six Siege. I'm not the target market for that, but it's something that really doesn't impact my enjoyment of the game. And I'm sure that they've done their research and they know that other people really do appreciate that backstory and that information about their favorite characters each season when they come into the game. So I do think that was a wise move overall, and it also allowed them obviously to add all these additional countries, and we see it now with DLCs when they come along. You have someone in a country that hasn't had operators, and it really makes their day when they find out that their country is going to get a set of operators, or this year an operator that will come into Siege. So in answer to your question, I think that the hero-based system was a good move.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing that I would reiterate is just that I think that might limit the game too much. But if you think about it, we're getting more and more into a class-based system. You know, you can start to define some classes now, the more operators you get, but that's a product of having a lot of operators, not a design concept or a limiting concept within the game, in my opinion. So, yeah, I don't think a class system would have worked as well, and also wouldn't have been. There's a class system in Battlefield, you know, so it wouldn't have really jumped out to me. And I know that Overwatch came out around the same time as Siege that has a hero system, but that to me is what one thing that maybe I didn't like so much about Overwatch. Whenever I first played it, it was like, okay, so I have these classes. Within these classes are each, you know, are individuals. But in Siege, it never felt like that. In Siege, just felt like you have these operators. And I never, at the beginning, in the early days of Siege, you never got a whiff of classes.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Sorry.
No.
I was going to say the only thing that perhaps would have been that comes, you know, to mind that would have been a positive with a class system is perhaps as we're now sort of 4 years down the road with this game, someone joining it now, it would have been a lot more. It would have been a lot easier to comprehend how the characters work. Whereas now, I think there is quite a learning curve to understanding all the interactions with Finka or Ying or Sophia and how she works with her sister. I mean, like, that's the bit of the lore I don't really like. But a class-based system would imagine simplify something like that. But I'm not sure it would be better for the overall health of the game to have something like that in there.
You mentioned it would be complex for new players, and absolutely so. I've seen Pro League players on stream say that things are getting too complicated for them. There are so many different operators that do so many different things with so many weird interactions. Like, I feel almost last year was the year of little nuanced interactions where every character had to have little counters and counter that's the operator, but this operator counters you, and just all this, rather than just here is their main gadget, their main ability, these are their weapons, go. It had to be this sort of interlinking, cross-linking, complex, and it's. Like I say, I've seen Pro League players say that it's too much, it's too complicated, because just the opportunities for the enemy team to use against you are just limitless almost.
I almost feel like that started with Sophia and Ella, where it really pushed it to this new level because they're sisters, their concussion effects don't, you know, and it was like, right, well, that's kind of counterintuitive to think of it like that. And then, of course, we had Finka, who, by the way, is a goldmine for my quiz series on my second channel, because there are so many things. Like, there are so many things. Does she do this? Can she do that? Will it do this? Which, are, like, in a way, I'm kind of grateful for that series. But overall, you know, in a way, those analytical videos, of which I've done a few, and Rogue, you've done a great many of, are really helpful to people as this game grows, because they will want. You know, God, does an impact grenade do more damage depending on what armor level I am? I mean, what's the speed comparison between operators when they're running with sidearms and stuff? You know, all sorts of different things. And so actually, as a YouTube creator, you can do something really positive for the community and start to make it easier for new players to understand these mechanics, but also for pro players that are confused by, you know, even something as simple as, what is the best gun? You know, this operator has what seems to be 2 reasonably good guns. Which is the best one? And you can make a video, and it gives you content to create, which again is promoting the game.
Yeah, there's certainly limitless opportunities there, because there's so much that you can't actually learn by playing the game. You could play hundreds of hours and you might not learn some of the small details that someone can then go away and test in a few hours. And it just, it gives me and all of us really the opportunity to find out these details that then other people can use in their game.
Yeah. In Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4, I used to cover them on YouTube, and used to have this attachment system where you could have all these different grips and barrel attachments, and you can make videos. I made videos about what each of them do as a percentage benefit, this, that, and the other. And then when Battlefield 1 rolled around, it was like, well, all the content I used to make for the other battle. Not only do I not really enjoy Battlefield 1, and I'm loving Siege, so I'll keep making videos for that, but not only that, the content I used to make for Battlefield, I actually cannot really make anymore, because the actual nature and the design of the game is such that I cannot. Those choices are taken away from the player, and the devs have just deigned it that you can choose these very basic different classes, and there's little option for you to customize within that. And it's bad for the game because it's content that people can make to promote their game.
Yeah, in a way, for sure. So one of the other concepts I think that could have been fundamentally impactful, something that was in the early development of the game, and actually there was an internal dev tournament, and I have a video of that. I think it's like an hour and a half long, and they went like, this was in 2013, so the game had only been in development for like a year or so, or not even. It was towards the end of 2013, so less than a year of development. And the developers held an internal tournaments with dozens of teams. They had casters. They had all this. It's quite fascinating to see the detail they went into with this tournament. And it was played with mid-round respawns. So if you died, a timer came up, and after whatever it was, 30-odd seconds or so, you would be able to respawn both on the attacking and defending side. So, respawns in Siege. Thoughts on that?
That'd have been different. It's so hard to even say what the game would be like with that. You know what I mean? But it would certainly take I think the play style would be completely different. You know what I mean? You would take so much more risk if you knew you could respawn, and I would have to think that it would really throw the game into the attacker's favor, in my opinion. That's the way I would see it, but I could be wrong in that. I don't know. I think that it probably would have turned me off as well, because again, I was a Call of Duty Search and Destroy player. I was the only game mode I was interested in, and so if I would have heard respawn, I may have not ever played this game.
Yeah, and the fact that wasn't one of the taglines esport ready with Siege, or was that something the community added later on?
I think that's just become a meme when there are
I'm sure
problems.
that was part of a trailer.
Maybe it was. Maybe it
But
was.
some of that, well, as far as a spectator watching an esport, like I've watched Battlefield as an esport, and they used to play Domination, if I remember correctly. Bloody hell, was that boring? People respawning and running to cap the flag, and there's a lot more adrenaline and anxiety and nerves watching Rainbow Six Siege match. There's a lot more going on with a 1 versus 3 clutch than just some clown being able to respawn and run straight back to the flag. It's a lot less punishing. So I struggle to see how the game would have succeeded. Have you thought of any ways that it would have made the game better at all, or because
have you guys played Insurgency Sandstorm's competitive mode, the firefight? It's got an interesting twist on respawn mechanics that is kind of fun. I don't think that works in Siege because it's based upon like a domination style game mode, but when you capture a point, you get a full respawn. But I mean, that's a cool game mode. It's a cool game mode that involves respawning, I guess is the point I'm making there. So it's not impossible, but
yeah, obviously that wouldn't work in Siege because there's no flags you can capture, unless I guess they would have made that. But that for sure is an interesting way you could have respawns, but probably wouldn't work in Siege. So here's the next thing. One of the things with drone development that I noticed was there were all kinds of plans to give the drones extra abilities. So, and these are standard drones, not unique drones. So explosive charges, gas, both lethal or non-lethal, smoke, the flash ability on a drone, electric stuns that would sort of freeze an opponent in place, like an electroshock stunner, like a stun gun nowadays, like a real stun gun rather than Twitch's stun drone. Because you think about Twitch, I mean, it's called an electroshock drone, but really it just shoots. It shoots little things that destroys gadgets and harms players. There's no
It doesn't do what Clash does.
Yeah, there's no real electroshock effect. So yeah, what about drones with abilities? Completely and utterly OP, or is there a way in which it could be interesting?
So you said in that video that, this was one of those things that was ruled out during the development stages, but I suspect it's something we might see something of in the future. Frank, you're laughing, but I really reckon that I would not be surprised to see a few more drone type operators enter the fray.
I can see that.
Yeah, with these different abilities, So I don't think that's off the table at all, because weren't there some things in that video where you said that they were taken off the table in a development stage but then returned at a later date?
I think we've sort of seen things like, for instance, there was a Scan Eagle drone, which was basically a drone that just constantly, autonomously circles the map. And it was basically like a camera for the attackers. You could just switch to that and you'd get a view. That has been taken out, but in a way, you could say that defenders, when they run out, they get tagged. That's kind of what the drone now does. It's just become more automatic. Or maybe you could even say that Lion's drone has kind of replaced that. So, and I mean, even like the stun drone, we do have Twitch with a drone that supposedly kind of has that. So yeah, I think a lot of these things just have made their way in, but in a different type, different shape.
Yeah, and I suspect we're going to see more drone style attackers at some stage. I really do.
Yeah, I would say so as well.
Yeah, especially now with
that's
the
going
defender.
to boost. That's going to be a buff to Mozzie.
Yeah. The more unique drones he can get a hold of and use, the better.
And there's endless possibilities of things you could do with that. I mean, I've had people say you could have one that defuses as a defender, that defuses the diffuser, the bomb or what have you. I mean, that's only, you could only use it on one game mode. It would be handy for that game mode, right? but there are so many, one that just blows up a hole in a soft wall, the smoke one, motion sensor.
Yeah, definitely more ideas, but I would probably say that I think we can all sort of conclude that having different types of weaponry and abilities on the standard drones would make attacking much more powerful and defending much more of a nightmare.
Yeah.
One operator idea I had on my series many going back years, and I really liked this idea. It's powerful though. Imagine, like the Jackal visor, but what you actually have is on screen you have a little camera and it shows what your drone can see, just your drone. And it shows, so you can obviously see where you're going and what you're aiming at, but you can look up and you can see what your drone's looking at as well, just for that extra intel. So it's like a visor that has a little monitor in it.
Yeah.
That could be really interesting, really powerful. Yeah. It's basically like what you can do with the drone now, but you have to have a friend watching it and making call-outs, or you have to switch quickly, but you can just act on it autonomously. That's
a flank watch. Yeah. I love that idea, man. That would be really cool.
Not my
if they
idea,
could work it out. If they could work it out graphically, like that would be really cool.
And that's kind of realistic as well. Like with today's technology, you could have a heads-up display that just has that little camera feed.
It's way more realistic than Jackal, man.
Yeah.
So
come on.
So let's use that as a segue. Realism in Siege. So one of the things I saw in Xavier Marquis' notes was that early on, his idea, once they started developing the unique hero operators, one of the things for developing that, one of the core rules he had is we need to avoid sort of anything that is too sci-fi, anything that is too unrealistic for the Rainbow Six franchise in terms of these powers and abilities. So he had that sort of idea that either it has to be realistic, or if it's any kind of magic ability, it has to be explained by sort of general gameplay convention. So this was still when they had respawns and saying that, yes, respawns are kind of magic. You don't get those in real life, but they're also just accepted as part of multiplayer games. So as long as you don't have to explain anything that is too unrealistic, stay away from it. And then, I mean, I would argue that over time, we've seen operators come in that definitely go beyond what is realistic and what is capable.
Mm-hmm. But what about Pulse? I mean, that's an original operator. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty far out there in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think I even mentioned Thatcher. Like, an EMP is possible, but in real life nowadays, you have to detonate a nuclear weapon at high altitude, like in the stratosphere, and that then knocks out all electronics in a huge area. You can't have little contained EMP grenades. IQ is kind of sci-fi as well. So in a way, yes, we have had those very early on, but maybe it became more extreme over time.
Yeah. It did.
I think it did come. I think it did become more extreme, and I wonder if that was. I personally prefer the Bucks of this world, but I suppose it may have become a necessity for them at some stage because of the sheer number of operators that they're adding into the game to go a little bit sci-fi. I've made a whole video just talking about this very topic because I think it is a very interesting topic to talk about this, and I think realism is. I come to the conclusion realism is important, actually, because sometimes people will argue away realism and say, actually, it is just a video game. And to some extent, that is true. But there needs to be a veneer of realism to help engross you in the game, in that form of escapism. And if Siege wanted to be something else, then they could have just set it in the future where there's limitless possibilities with what they could do with technology, but it isn't set in the far future. It could potentially be 10, 15 years in the future, I guess. But as we get more and more of these sort of crazy technologies, Thinker Boost and stuff like that, it does pull you away from what Siege seemed to be originally, with the team that designed those original operators. And I do take on board what you say about Pulse and Thatcher, but it's still, even though Pulse gave you those wall hacks, it still felt like, you could kind of accept it for what it was, you know, but they've just taken it a stage beyond that now, almost a step too far for many people that play the game, I feel. But don't you feel that there is some importance to realism, that there needs to be some...
It depends on the person. I've always said I don't want the game to be held back creatively because it's trying to be too realistic. Now, what is too realistic? I don't want this to be Overwatch where we have fairies flying around.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want it to be tactical realistic and only incorporate technology that is in today's world. Like I like the near future rule, kind of. If that's a thing that you can kind of define, I like the near future rule.
Like placing up a barricade, you know, realistically, you'd have to go get the wood, you know, run over to the door, spend 10 minutes hammering nails. I mean, come on, that is not going to be a fun game. So you have to take, you know, some liberties with things like that anyway.
Yeah, I would say exactly the same thing. I'm happy for it to go in a bit sci-fi direction, as long as it makes gameplay sense and it makes the game a better game. But you know what? Like, over the years, I've always seen discussions on the Reddit, and I used to get comments on my videos. People really upset about some of the futuristic operators that we started getting. One of the funny things I noticed when I released this video now is that a lot of people commented and said, oh, no, everything in Rainbow Six is explainable, and people telling me how Jackal's visor, no, that makes sense. It's based on a real camera that exists right now that takes ultra high resolution images and can analyze them for footprints in the dust and can find them and highlight them, and the software's already out there, it exists, it's just larger. And I was just thinking, oh, really? So it was quite fascinating to see, right? The impression I'd always had is that players were upset about the futuristic nature of a lot of the operators. Apparently, there's also a lot of people who are on the other side who thought that me highlighting that was wrong, and actually there's nothing wrong with any of the operators in Siege.
How did they explain Finka? Like, I know nanobots are like an emerging technology, but explain to me, I push a button here and nanobots go into you over
10
there.
minutes
they're already
before
in
you
you.
land in that chopper, she gave you all an injection of nanobots.
So why not just have them going all the time anyway? Why do I get to choose?
They get-
why
Side effect.
They get
why
tired.
doesn't the individual operator get to choose for themselves?
They get tired. The bots get tired.
This is a can of worms, though, when you go down here, because there are so many things that just couldn't be explained even from the base game with some of the things in there. You know, like it wouldn't be that easy to rappel up a building, just throw up a grappling hook and off you go. No, it would be actually quite tricky. You know, you wouldn't be able to do, but those things are there to make the game ultimately playable.
Here's a question I have for you, Rogue. Maybe you found this in your studies. I don't know if the new maps have them or not, but the original maps have rappel like hooks at the top. You know what I'm saying? Like in some places now you can rappel anywhere, but originally were you only going to be able to rappel in those specific locations?
Interesting. I didn't see anything in the footage or the notes. It did go over rappelling and how it was a large focus for them, but it didn't actually mention. In fact, I mean, there was this sort of rappelling motion capture video that was put out by Ubisoft quite a while ago as well. And one of the shots you see in there is someone rappelling on a wall and actually traversing. So I think that was sort of planned from the beginning, and just the little rings, the metal rings, are kind of they're cosmetic, I would say.
Yeah, they don't really make sense though, because it doesn't go into that. They don't really come into play at all. So yeah, or maybe I wonder if that's just a visual indicator. So if I'm looking up, hey, I can rappel here, or in this general area.
Yeah, that's maybe more of an indicator to show you what you can do and where. Yeah, I think so. One of the big things that got deleted from the game, but what we can see in very, very early alpha footage, is a circular mini-map on screen that shows not only your position, but also the position of your teammates, the position of the objective. Every person has a visual cone that you can see, and it even has an outline of the map, so you can see an outline of the rooms. And then anytime an enemy comes into view, whether that's the view of your character or the view of your drone or anything else, the enemy also gets marked on the mini-map with a little red dot that moves as long as it's being spectated, and that becomes a question mark as soon as it's not spectated anymore. Thoughts on that? Overpowered? Good idea? Potential?
I remember the adjustment the first time that I started playing Siege. I was looking for my mini maps, coming from COD and Battlefield. I'm glad that we don't have it. If you think about the HUD, the HUD of Siege, there's a lot going on already.
I agree.
Between pick up the bomb, the objective is this way. All your buffs, there's a lot going on in the HUD right now. I would hate to have a mini map added to that.
And the ping system goes a long way, right, Flank? Giving away, that cool. And the fact as well, you do have the directional one, and you have the room name at the bottom as well. So you have that information.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm advocating for it, if I'd say something that it would do well is help with non-verbal communication. If you're playing with random other players and you're not really using their voice comms, or they're not using voice comms, making call-outs simply by being able to position my drone so it can see the enemy, and then it appears on someone else's minimap, and the entire team knows what I'm seeing right now without me having to give a verbal call-out. That could help in situations where you don't have that communication, which can happen quite frequently. If you're solo queuing, certainly at least. But on the other hand, I think the way the system has worked out now is much better. I think it would have been kind of crude to just have a live updating minimap with little dots everywhere, and maybe even a bit too powerful if you can just hide a drone in a room and then you have a live view of someone moving around on a minimap, and you can then try to wallbang them that way. So I think also it's a good thing that was removed, but maybe it had some positives to it.
I think that might have been a kind of relic of how they thought the game would be played. Much more slower, methodical, watching these angles, moving towards the objective room inside the building, seeing the cones of fire and the direction where people are looking. And it's probably like superfluous to what is necessary within the game to be able to perform and do what you need to do. But how they perhaps imagined it being, I could see why they wanted that in there.
And I ain't brought up a good point in my chat that can you imagine how strong the information meta would be right now? So with all these cameras that defenders have, I mean, the minimap, you would know where the attackers are pretty much at any given time on your minimap.
Especially bulletproof cams, maestro cams. You can't even do anything about it.
Mozzie.
Yeah. Here's another interesting idea. This was never really put into a playable version, at least that I can tell, but I did find some notes early on that suggested permanent and accumulating damage to the map. So in round 1, any holes you create in walls, anything you destroy, when you come back in round 2 and 3 and 4, it's still there. Thoughts on that idea?
Is this the persistent damage?
Yes, exactly.
That's pretty deep, actually. Because you think about it, okay, so let's say that I destroy a wall. I'm defender first. First round, I destroy this wall. The next round, the defenders, could they come in and then reinforce that wall if they so choose, or they could leave it completely destroyed? Okay,
maybe
that actually could be cool. I mean, you think about it. I mean, okay, there's a lot of problems as well. What do you do about floors? That's the big problem. Is the floors. If I completely as a defender shoot out a floor, then the defenders have to deal with that next time. I mean, granted, I'm gonna have to deal with it. I don't know.
Here's an idea that kind of avoids that. What if each team has their own persistent damage? So the damage that my team does while attacking affects, or it basically skips a round, so that when the other team is attacking, they start over again. So it's either you could have just sort of the two different damage streams in parallel when everyone's attacking and then defending, or you can have more of a format that we see in Pro League now, where everyone does their defending first, and it's just you attack, and then you attack again with all the damage there, and you attack again until you've done all your blocks of attacking rounds. Then you switch defenders, and the map gets reset. So that would avoid, because I mean, imagine like you open up a wall or something critical in your attacking round, and then as a defender, the next round you have to deal with that against you. That's kind of it's a double-edged sword, really, isn't it?
It's really interesting, isn't it? It is.
But if you had sort of the attacking and defending rounds in blocks, that could kind of at least help with that issue.
My initial. Sorry, go on, Flanked.
Well, I mean, you think about this. What about Castle? Like, you could, as Castle, you could go and set up, like, say you're playing Skyscraper. The first round, you're defending Karaoke. Well, you pick Castle the first round. You go over to Office. You set up what your defense is going to be the next round there. And then the next round, you pick Castle again, and you've got twice as many castles on the board. Or you don't have to pick Castle, and maybe those things are still up.
There, yeah.
Yeah.
My initial reaction is that it's not really a good idea to do that because, you know, I could see it being you could set things up one round to make a rush the next round a lot easier. You could destroy certain soft walls and what have you. Though I do think that would be a really interesting idea for an event if they did something like this with persistent destruction in the game. Just like an April Fool's Day event, something like that. I think if they ran that for a week in a certain playlist. But with regards to that coming into the main game, I like the idea of it resetting every round. I feel like it's a leveler that it does that, and everyone's on a level playing field, and you're not setting up extra castle barricades or putting holes in walls you know you're going to need in a round or two.
It'd be deep, though. Can you imagine, like, so let's say the first round as an attacker, you're like, we don't need to win this round. All we need to do is destroy every external wall and put ourselves in a position where they're going to have a really hard time winning another defensive round. You know what I mean? Like, that'd be kind of deep. Like, this would be a cool game mode or something.
Would they then be, say you went to a garage door, you blew it up with a thermite charge, would they then be able to reinforce that in the next?
I think in fairness, you should then have the ability to reinforce again in a new round. I think that should be a possibility.
What if you spend the whole round destroying all the floor above them?
Yeah.
Maybe there should then have been an ability to sort of, I don't know, roll out a carpet or something, just to have that sort of soft covering again, just sort of a visual covering, but maybe something you would have to do manually. Send someone quickly up, like reinforcing a hatch, but just sort of recovering the floor.
Yeah, I think it'd be a cool event.
An interesting idea, although, like, yeah, it all kinds of different problems that could occur with it, for sure. Here's another interesting thing. This is quite a small thing, but initially, very early on, shields had an ability where a second player could sort of grab onto their shoulder, hold onto them, and then together they could enter this kind of charge, and they could destroy soft walls. So there is footage, early footage,
and then blind everybody inside once they reach the soft wall.
early footage
That's
of
in
just
the prep phase, by the way, all right? Because Blitz originally was going to spawn in the prep phase. So in the prep phase, you just have the Kool-Aid Blitz guy running through your wall,
exactly,
and then blinding you.
Yeah, I think I can see how your thoughts are on this ability already. Shields being able to run through soft walls with a player attached, and as soon as they come out the other side, you've got a shield in front of you plus a second player with a rifle.
I like the idea though of being behind a shield player and having your hand on their shoulder and following them through. But
especially as Blackbeard, that sounds so balanced, man. It really does. Like,
well, you know, I don't like the idea of bursting through walls though.
What about
that'd be interesting. I mean,
that'd be hip fire only because, of course, you know, you've got one hand. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, that makes sense.
Okay,
but do I seem to remember that shields you could ADS originally? Like, if we go back to the beta. I'm sure you could actually ADS, and people were like, dude, this is crazy.
Yeah,
you need
I think really early on, which was either maybe the closed beta or something like that, you could actually aim without having to expose yourself. So this whole tilting your shield and exposing your head, that was something that was added later.
Yeah. I remember, I think in my beta review video, I'm like, okay, the shields are out of control. I've been hating on shields for a long time in Rainbow Six Siege. So
here's something that was, I think, in one of the early betas as well, and that is unlimited runouts by the defenders, so you don't get marked at all. And I think this is something we also see in the E3 trailer, where defenders are just jumping out and then they're gone and they're running away. It's like, as a modern player, we look back at that, and it's just like, how is he just disappearing by running out? How is there a sniper in the construction site across the road from house, and that sniper gets killed by a defender that just runs out? And that was the initial idea, that the whole map was playable and that defenders would be able to fight outside, flank outside, and use the outside as much as the inside.
Well, they rolled that back in a big way, because if you guys recall, in year one, when you went outside, your vision changed. Well, initially you could go out for 7 seconds before this happened.
Yeah.
And then they rolled it back to 2 seconds. I think it was 7 seconds. And then either way, your screen went this like grain of red, and you could barely see anything. And they've actually rolled that back since then. I forget which season that was.
That was
just after Operation Health, I believe.
Yeah, I don't remember actually, but it's been a little while.
But it wasn't always 2 seconds, was it? Do you remember?
It used to be longer. That made run-outs even more menacing than they are now, because you could literally run out, shoot people, spend several seconds outside, and still make it back in. So now it's so that as soon as you jump out of a window, you're almost instantly spotted. That was a change that was done a while ago, and I think the change of being able to go out at all came from feedback in the beta, because I think I saw someone doing a review recently. I think it might have been Matimio, going back to the really early closed beta stuff. And one of the problems was that defenders could actually run out before the prep phase was finished. So you had defenders running out. If you knew where the attackers would spawn, you could stand there, they would spawn in, and you could instantly shoot them. So that was why they locked down the building at the beginning. During the prep phase, you can't go out, you can't throw anything out during the prep phase at all to combat that. And then eventually they sort of rolled it back more and more and more with getting spotted and having a timer and everything like that.
I mean, I remember one position you could get into on bank as a defender, and you could just wait until that last second of the prep phase. As soon as that went, you'd just see the attackers appear, and you could pop them straight in the head. But with an instantaneous spawn peak. There were loads.
Yeah, there was that on Canal as well.
Yeah, there were loads like that, man. It was absolutely crazy.
That is terrible. But the idea of being able to play outside after a while, I don't know if I would mind that so much to add more of a dimension if you could flank out by running out a side of the building, coming all the way around, and then following the attackers in where they made their breach. That's not a bad idea, I think. I suppose the game works as it is, and it would just add a whole different dimension to the gameplay.
Yeah.
What about reinforcing the map by being able to push furniture around,
That was really cool.
having doors in the game? So that's something that was quite a crazy idea. Doors in buildings, and you could sort of weld them shut or shove a chair underneath the door to stop people coming in.
Yeah, it was cool. I think that playing it might feel a little bit tedious, but the footage looked really cool.
Like propping a chair under the door handle and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It did look really cool. You know, when I think that's, you know, when people get excited about games like Ready or Not, it's because of that sort of realistic element that you can do these things that you might want to go and do in real life. But I suspect that Siege again benefits from not having a mechanic like that in there, which would be fun for the first week of playing, but I think in the end, like Flank said, that would get tedious, running around grabbing furniture and barricading up.
And also so much harder to set that up for every map. Like, there's so much more development, work, and effort that can be used in other ways when you don't have to have those systems in there.
You know,
I think it's bad when you get castled into the objective. What if you got a bunch of furniture in front of every door at the objective?
Well, that's the next operator, isn't it? Instead of pulling barricades out their backside, they're pulling big dining tables out their backside and propping up every door on the map.
What about being able to completely open up floors? So rather than having hatches, there was sort of initial footage where you could just blow a hole in the floor and then jump down or use that to your advantage.
Defenders would be so screwed.
Yeah. So a breaching charge would open up any floors so that you could drop through. There'd be those beams were added, weren't they, to stop that. It would be like, as a spectacle, it'd be really cool. It would be really cool to be able to do that and to see that in action, but completely unbalanced and in favour of the attacking team. I've always said that I think it would be kind of interesting if they had one attacker that had one charge that could open up those steel floor beams, because it wouldn't be so prevalent that it just breaks the entire game, and it might be really interesting to use on certain objectives, you know, like laying down an exothermic charge. And of course it could be countered from below with, you know, an impact grenade or something if you had the intel above.
We theorized about that before Maverick came out, right? That Maverick might be able to cut through the steel bars, the steel floor bars that stop people going through.
I wonder if they'll be brave enough to do that at some point.
It could become a tactical nightmare if just enemies could appear from anywhere, if they could just make their way through down almost any floor, or maybe only certain floors, like wooden floors, rather than any floor. If it's still concrete, you can't get through. But still, I think from a tactical perspective, it could just be so problematic. But still, like if you've seen the E3 trailer has this whole scene where two of the defenders are downstairs in the gym, and then one of the guys runs up and blows through the floor and then jumps down on them as his teammates are breaching in through the door. It looks cool. How good would it translate in sort of a competitive game? Difficult to say. Maybe the last thing to mention, and this again is something that features quite heavily in the E3 trailer, is the helicopter spawn. So you see this team playing as the attackers, and they're thinking about where to spawn, and then it just, okay, we'll go down on the roof as a helicopter. Would that add anything to the game, or would it just be a different spawn with a bit more theatric, cinematic flair to it?
It would
really
add the cool element to it, for sure.
The problem I see with it is when you combine that with what you said earlier with running out and being able to play out there in the prep phase. So I, as a defender, I know where the attackers are spawning. I can run out in the prep phase and just basically set up looking up at the roof, and they have to come. I mean, if there's no hatches in that roof, which there isn't on house, they have to rappel off of that roof in order to get down. I mean, they're going to die. You know, that would just be, I would have to think that's why it was removed, is because they were just finding it impossible to get off of that roof.
wasn't in the beta, wasn't it that you had a poll, and then you all voted where to spawn, and then whatever location won the most votes, that's where everyone spawned?
But still as an option in the game. You can set it for custom games.
Right.
Yeah.
So I could see the logic in that then, if that helicopter could move to one of those locations, you know, north, east, west, south, or on top of the building, because you're only going to have that one spawn point for all the attackers. But I don't think that would be a wise move. I mean, so many times you need people to spawn at different sides of the map. You see it in the Pro League all the time, obviously. You don't want all 5 players spawning in one location normally.
And even if it is just one of the spawn options, how would it work? Because you have that cinematic, which is cool, of getting out of the helicopter and sliding down the rope, but where does that time come from, right? You've got the drone phase where everyone's droning around, and then the action phase, and if one of the spawns costs you an extra 10 seconds to come in, or what if you then have to sacrifice part of your droning phase to go through that cinematic of getting into the map? Where does that time come from, and where does it come from with other spawns? That would be the problem I see.
And that's cool at first, but after a couple thousand games, it's not that cool anymore.
Yeah. Oh, I'm with you.
Cool. So, yeah, those were some of the things. I think, really interesting to see. It was a lot of effort, especially trying to read French notes in Xavier Marquis' handwriting. There's nothing worse than trying to read a foreign language in handwriting where you can't actually make out all of the letters. So that was a lot of work, but I'm really happy I did that because it's a really interesting insight. Now, why don't we move on to some Pro League? Why don't we? Let's have a look at how Pro League did this week, because we have had quite a shakeout in, I think, most of the regions, and we have a much clearer picture since there's only 1 week left now. So let me go across to that. There we are. Let me start on EU and we'll go through the standings. Team Empire still in first place, even though they now have lost 2 matches, won 9 and drawn 2. They're on 29 points. The Stream is second place on 26 points. Then we have Pentasports in third on 21 points. Chaos in fourth, also on 21 points. G2 are in fifth position. They're on 20 points, so only 1 point difference. But goodness me, the undefeatable team, the unchallengeables in fifth. Mouse Esports on 13 points in sixth. Then we have Natus Vincere, which is Navi. They are now on 10 points in seventh position, and 9 points in the current auto-relegation spot is still Team Secret. So at this stage we can say that both Le Stream and Team Empire are untouchable. They're cemented into basically the number 1 and number 2 positions, and they will definitely be going to the LAN final in Milan.
Yeah.
But all to play for right at the bottom, because we do have this auto-relegation spot in EU. There's only 1 point difference between Navi and Team Secret. So Team Secret are fighting this week, basically, this Friday. Team Secret are fighting for their position, and they have to play Chaos, who are currently in the 4th place, just about, or well, joint 3rd, 4th with Penta.
And Navi have the easy task of G2.
Well, it's really hard to say. What is the task of playing G2 right now? Because what? I mean, when they played G2 at the beginning of the season, they lost 7-2 on Oregon. That's not great for them. But then if you look through the season for Navi, they've lost most of their matches. Sadly, they've really struggled. They had towards the end of the first half of the season, they had 2 wins. They did all right, but they've lost almost every match. So they need to defeat G2. G2 last week basically were kind of kingmaker. They already couldn't go to LAN, but their game against Chaos decided if Chaos still had a chance to go or not, and they managed to sort of pull Chaos down with them. I think I saw a ESL tweet out an image of like a person sitting on a branch, sawing it off as they're sitting on it, and it was 2 people on it, and one was Fabian's face, and he was sawing off the branch and taking Team Chaos with them. So that's that, and that's their role again this week. if they beat Navi and Team Secret at least gets a draw or a win, Team Secret could avoid the auto relegation, but it does depend on G2 beating Navi first.
Mm-hmm.
And if we look at how G2 and Navi have played, actually G2 has already this is Secret. Secret and Navi have played twice already, and Navi has won those. Those are only 3 games Navi has won in the entire season so far. In 13 games, they've only won 3, but 2 of those have been beating Secret. So they have the mini-league points. If they can draw equal, they will still win. So Secret needs to win. They need to overtake Navi by points, and Navi need to lose in order to fall down to that auto-relegation point, or obviously conversely to give Secret the opportunity of moving out. So at least their fate is kind of in their hands for Navi. And Secret is up against the wall. They've had a poor season, very poor. And surprisingly as well, coming from where they were. Really, it would be interesting to sort of get more of an understanding what, from their perspective, they really struggled with this season.
Did you say anything about the news as far as Team Empire and Shockwave dropping out?
No, I haven't mentioned that.
I'm sorry, I walked away first. Yeah, I mean, that just came as a really big surprise, as good as they've looked. They said it was according to some type of disagreement between Shockwave and one of the other players, and they replaced him. So, yeah.
Didn't they all live in a house together?
I think they do,
I don't
actually.
know.
Yeah, I think they have a team house. I think they do. I'm
sure.
crazy.
84% sure. Yeah, and obviously we can already see that's had an impact. Obviously, Lestream is the second place team. They are, by statistics, the second strongest team in the EU region, and they played Empire and they actually won. So the second loss ever for Empire came in this last week after they made this sudden change. And you almost think then, we're so close to the LAN finals in Milan. How is that going to affect them going into there after such a dominant season so far?
Right. Yeah, that's a good question.
Unfortunate for sure.
Yeah.
Let's move over to the next region. We'll just go along. We'll look at LATAM. Immortals still in the number 1 spot on 27 points now. Ninjas in Pajamas on the second on 25 points. Then we have FaZe Clan on 24. Then Team Liquid on 23. And those are basically the 4 teams that even now we have one more match to go, basically. One more match day. All 4 of these teams can still make it to the LAN finals. They are so close together that Ninjas in Pajamas, FaZe Clan, or Immortals can get that first spot. All 3 of them have the opportunity of making it into first, I believe. Depends on the mini-league points between Immortals and FaZe, to be honest. Let's have a look. And in fact, yeah, so FaZe have lost to Immortals once, but they are playing Immortals this Thursday. So technically, they can still get into the same number of points. So if FaZe Clan wins this match, they get up to 27 points as well, which would tie them with Immortals. And then it depends, I guess, on the round difference at the end of the day. So if they win, then they go to the round difference between them. So they'd have to win in convincing fashion. But in theory, FaZe Clan can still take first place. And Team Liquid, they can't be first anymore. They can't draw with Immortals or overtake them. But they can still make the second, depending on how their match goes with Ninjas in Pajamas. So actually a really exciting final match day for the LATAM region, because the number 1 spot is playing number 3, and the number 2 spot currently is playing number 4, and there's only... 4 points between all of them. And in fact, the number 2, 3, and 4, there's only 1 point between each of them. And you've got both of these 4 teams matched up in two matches. That's going to be one hell of a game day.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's going down to the wire.
Going through the second half of the sort of the table, we have Black Dragons on 15 points in number 5, Ints on 15 points as well in number 6. They are safe from auto relegation for sure. In fact, they are safe from the relegation spot in general. And in fact, Not only that, but Red Devils is already on 10 points and Pain is on 6. So even if Red Devils lose this week and Pain wins, and they are in fact playing each other as it would come, it's like this whole region has ended up on the perfect final match day, but actually too
Do we
little
want
too
to throw a
late.
disclaimer out because some of the there's one team that's played more matches than others, so there could be an error in the standings here. Do we want to say that?
Oh, that's a good point. That is a really good point. So let me finish this thing first. For Pain, it's over. They are auto-relegated. Even if they win against Red Devils, it's still going to be 9-10. So Pain, for sure, is getting relegated at the end of this season. Red Devils will have to fight for their relegation. Yes, you are completely right, because in these standings, on the ESL website right now, there are only 12 matches that have been captured for FaZe Clan. So that's a really good question. What is the actual score?
Well, I've got 12 for
FaZe.
INTZ.
Really?
On my table. 12 matches played, 12 points, and it is 12 points because I've just gone through their results.
So I
refresh.
have 13 matches for them and 15 points.
I've just clicked refresh and it's given them 13 and FaZe 12.
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah,
can you go back?
The page. Yeah, I can go back. Yeah.
Does that work? Because I was going to ask you
it doesn't
if...
work.
No, what a shame. God damn it. Because I was going to ask you what the score for FaZe was. Do you remember?
Oh, let me wind my stream back. Just hold on a second. Let's have a look. So the score for FaZe was 25 points, I think.
Okay, so we're missing a draw, essentially, here. Yeah, there's a problem with the website. So technically then, okay, that makes it even more interesting. So they are basically drawn with Ninjas in Pajamas, both on 25 points.
Yeah, it says 25. You can you can just go through the fixtures. So what have they got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. Yeah, but still on. It should surely be on the matches list. No,
there's one missing. That's it. I think there's in the website the standings table takes its scores from the match listings, and there is a match listing missing for FaZe for some reason, and that's why we end up with those scores. So even manually counting, we can't find that missing match. But yeah, here it is. So if you say you've got a draw on there, which for some reason isn't being shown for us, that gives them 25. And since they are playing against Immortals, which are the number 1 spot, they're only 2 points difference, so they can still actually overtake them if they win. If they win this... So if FaZe, who are currently 3rd, if they win, they could make it into 1st. And depending on how Ninjas in Pajamas play, Team Liquid, either Ninjas in Pajamas could make it into 1st, or Team Liquid could even make it into 2nd. So, okay. So we're only missing 1 draw. But yes, good point.
I'm on Liquipedia. I'm on Liquipedia now.
Yes.
Good move.
And it's telling me that Immortals is in 1st with 27 points. FaZe Clan's in 2nd with 27 points. Ninjas in Pajamas is in 3rd with 25 points, and Team Liquid is in 4th with 23 points.
Okay, so we're missing a win then for FaZe Clan.
I guess so.
On the ESL website.
I guess so. Liquipedia, I trust more than the ESL site.
Yeah.
As strange as that sounds.
Well, we definitely know there's something
because remember
wrong.
I said that I thought that Team Liquid was eliminated already, and this would line up
though.
with that.
100% though, it showed up as 25 for me originally until I clicked refresh.
Great. So let's assume then that that Liquipedia is correct, and that they're on 27. 27 then means if Team Liquid wins, they can only get to 26, which would put them in 3rd by guarantee. So then you are correct. Team Liquid don't have a chance of making LAN.
Right. But if Ninjas in Pajamas wins, as long as there's not a tie in the 1st and 2nd place matchup, then they're in. Which is, yeah. So the only change is that Team Liquid can't get in. Everybody else everything's still the same. Everybody still has something to play for. The top 3.
Yes. Okay. So there you go. Take those stats with a grain of salt, and I would say believe whatever makes you happiest for the time being. Just go with whatever you want. There you are. Flank, do you want to take us through the NA standings? I'm sure you have the best overview.
I mean, really, the big thing is Evil Geniuses is in first. Dark Zero is in second. Team Reciprocity is in third. Rogue is in fourth. Space Station is in fifth. Accelerate is in sixth, and Rise is in seventh. Now, the big things to point out are Evil Geniuses and Dark Zero are going to land. That is known. Even if Team Reciprocity wins this week, they would be tied points-wise with Dark Zero, but Dark Zero owns the tiebreaker. So we already know who's going to land from North America. At the bottom, though, is where it gets interesting, because Rise Nation plays Dark Zero today. Dark Zero having nothing to play for. They can't get that first seed. Evil Geniuses owns the tiebreaker for them, so there's literally nothing for Dark Zero to play for today other than Pride. And they're playing against Rise Nation, who's trying to get out of that relegation spot, or possible relegation spots, because there's only 7 teams in NA. There's not an auto relegation spot. So no matter what, the team that gets 7th is going to have a chance to stay in Pro League by playing their way back in. But still, nobody wants to be there. So Rise Nation plays Dark Zero. Let me see who Accelerate plays.
EG.
Oh, boy.
So the 2 bottom teams today have to fight to get out of that relegation spot by playing the first 2 teams in the league.
And you know what's probably going to be the most entertaining match of all of it is Team Reciprocity versus Space Station. Because, again, neither of these teams have anything to play for. They can't make land, and they're not going to be relegated no matter what. So this match is one of those Pro League matches where you're likely to see the Tachanka. You're very likely to see a lot of crazy strats and fun stuff. So I would highly recommend tuning into that one if you're watching live. All of them, but that's tonight that all these matches will be going on.
You almost think it couldn't have worked out better with the top 2 who are already through playing the bottom 2 who have everything to play for, and then 2 in the middle who can just go ham and give it a go and see what they can come up with to make it entertaining and fun.
Yeah.
Do we know who's qualified from the APAC region?
Yes. Noringo and Fnatic.
Right. Well, big surprise there.
Yeah. Cloud9, no such luck, my friends.
Oh yes, we talked about that last week, right? Cloud9, they took over one of the teams, and then in their final they had a tough time of it.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay then, so much for that. Yeah, really. Oops. Oh dear, what have I done?
I can still hear you.
No, I'm here. I've just clicked live stream. I'm just gonna get that. There we go. We're back. I clicked the wrong thing, and all of a sudden I'm on the Pro League Twitch channel. Pro streamer right here.
Oh gosh.
It's fine. So I'm just gonna leave it where it is. So done. Let's maybe wrap things up now. Last week, Flank, you wanted to talk a little bit of Game of Thrones. I've left this to the end in case of anyone who doesn't want to have anything spoiled, anyone who's not caught up yet. We're now going to just do a little bit of Game of Thrones, and yeah, if you don't want to hear about it, you are free to go now. Thanks for joining us so far. Although, I think I can almost fairly say, even if we discuss yesterday's episode, there is nothing we could possibly spoil. Like, what a filler episode that was. Like,
There was
nothing happened.
I call it a fan service. It was a fan service episode. Like, people, I've been saying, as weird and awkward as it was, because we've been watching the show since Arya was a girl. I've been saying for a while that I saw Arya and Gendry eventually hooking up, or being together, or whatever you want to call it. So to see that come to fruition was kind of cool, I guess. Really awkward, but also kind of cool. But yeah, yesterday's episode, I feel like, was the calm before the storm. It was a lot of, getting all these characters together. Every main character other than Cersei and Euron are in Winterfell right now together. And that's kind of insane. And you think about
Who's
the
Euron?
character arcs.
Yeah,
Euron Greyjoy.
but he's there.
He's not in Winter. No, that's Theon.
Oh.
Theon. Euron's his uncle, who's evil.
Oh, he's the
Cersei.
nasty captain
Yeah.
guy. Yes. Okay. That's why I was confused.
He's the one who wanted to spend a night with Cersei.
who did, in fact, in the last
Yeah, in
episode.
fact.
Yeah.
That was mental, weren't it?
Yeah, it was.
Like, Jesus Christ. It's really odd this season, right? Because it's only 6 episodes, and we've gone with 2 episodes in, and not a lot's really happened. And I see some people upset on social media about that, in fact, and I can kind of see where they're coming from. But I really do feel as though the last however many 4 episodes we have left are just going to be so action-packed that when people think back about this season of Game of Thrones, they're not going to say, "Oh, do you remember those first 2 episodes were quite slow and not a lot happened and they didn't kill off any main characters"? Trust me, there's plenty of characters still to be killed off in the next 4 episodes. And I think, in fact, some of these episodes are really quite long that are coming up, like an hour and a half.
Here they're sort of double length, essentially 80 minutes. All of them is what I heard, but might be incorrect.
So without breaks, that's going to be
2 hours.
2 hours, 2-hour show.
Yeah.
I think a lot of those characters are dead. Like they're dead people walking right now. Brienne of Tarth, she's dead. She's gonna die.
She's a red coat. She's like the typical red coat from Star Trek anyway.
I don't think she's a character they've invested a lot of time on.
True, but then she's not vying for the throne. She's not one of the noblemen.
Her purpose has been served. Yeah, yes, she has nowhere else to go.
She's expendable
other than
now.
the grave. I think that Theon is probably dead. I think there's a lot of characters there that are probably going to die. And here's the thing: if they don't burn their bodies, they're coming back as White Walkers. Yep. As long as the Night King's in Winterfell. What if the Night King just sent his army there, and then is bypassing them and taking the dragon down the night to Landing? And is going to raise.
See him at the end.
We didn't know.
No, you saw the White Walkers. You saw the White Walkers on horse. You didn't see the Night King. You
didn't see him, and you didn't see the dragon.
Correct.
True.
So that's actually a fairly sound theory. That they didn't tease that.
Wouldn't that be like a nice twist? Like Cersei is sitting all the way down in King's Landing with a fleet of ships and 20,000 men, and then this dragon just comes past and sets the entire fleet on fire.
Yeah.
End of that.
Yeah.
Who is your favourite character in the whole show?
You know what? For me personally, I found the first, I would say 3, maybe 4 seasons almost a struggle to watch because I hated all of the characters. All of them. There is not a single character that I don't see a flaw in. Like, if I think of the first few seasons, what I would summarize the show as is a bunch of pompous, jumped-up nobodies who have no achievements, who just walk around saying, "I deserve the world because my surname is so-and-so. I am a Lannister, I'm a Stark, I'm a Targaryen, and therefore I deserve," and none of them have actually any skill or achievement to back up that claim, and that just made me automatically dislike everyone. So really hard to say. Even Jon Snow, who is one of the more likable characters, I still think he's made mistakes that I hold against him, and I'm just one of those people. So it's really hard for me to actually pick a favorite character.
Mine might be Jaime Lannister. And it's not necessarily he's not necessarily my favorite, but the story of Jaime Lannister and the character arc of Jaime Lannister is one of the greatest character arcs that you could ever experience. I mean, last night, I've been rooting for Jaime Lannister for a while, but how did he go from the guy who shoves Bran out the window because he's getting it on with his sister,
witnessed incest,
twin,
to where I'm rooting for this guy? How did they pull this off?
Yep.
It was a great character. I mean, he even killed. Do you remember when he was captured in season 2, and he killed that guy? Remember, he was that guy who was his squire, and that squire admired him so much, and they were chatting away, and he was saying how it was the day he would remember for the rest of his life, where he got to be his squire, and then he got him close, and he said, "You can help me escape, but you have to die." And then he bloody strangled him and mauled him to death. It was really horrible, but yet you still kind of like him at the end. It's really weird. If for Lannisters, though, I'm just going to have to go down the Tyrion route. I just think he's just such a cool character, and of course, he spends most of the first few seasons getting up to stuff. You know,
Yeah.
He's quite a vile character in the beginning.
yeah, but you know, you kind of have some sympathy for what he's been through. You know, how his family have treated him, his father. You know, one of the things I'll say, I actually like the characterization in Game of Thrones. I know you say that you know, they're flawed, but there are so many big characters and big actors in there. So, like British actors from TV shows of years gone by that just turn up. And I just think like there's so many strong characters and actors in there. Sean Bean, Charles Dance, you know, just I just think, and to know that any of these can die each season.
Yeah.
And you grow to love them, even the baddies.
Almost all of them.
Yeah,
I just don't see I don't see this episode, this coming episode. I don't see this episode ending and the battle with the Night King being over. And then there's 3 more episodes to finish up with Cersei? No. This is going to either they're going to lose this battle and Winterfell is going to fall and then they escape. Some of them escape. Or the Night King isn't even at Winterfell and maybe they, you know, destroy the army and then have to, you know, make it, you know, run to Winterfell, run to King's Landing to try to save them down there. I don't know.
and there's the politics between Daenerys and Jon Snow as well.
Yeah. I was kind of that. See, a lot of people had some issues with this episode. Sounds like you did, Rogue. I didn't. I enjoyed the episode.
I didn't mind it.
That was one thing. The one thing that kind of bugged me is that they waited till the end for that. I felt like they should have addressed that topic way earlier in the episode. The fact that they waited and then used that. The cliffhanger is already that the army's there, and next episode is going to be the battle. Why did they have to also use that as a cliffhanger?
2 cliffhangers.
I don't understand that.
What's better than 1 cliffhanger? 2 at the same time. No, I agree. And look, I didn't mind this episode. I enjoyed it perfectly well enough, but to me, it did feel like a little bit of a filler because, just like you mentioned, this conflict and seeing how Daenerys reacts to that challenge to her authority that's the interesting thing, and they kind of just mention it right at the end, and then here's the army and done.
It did suck, yeah. You needed that resolution.
You really want to know how she reacts because she's gone through a really interesting character arc as well, right? She started out really a victim of horrible abuse with her brother, basically using her to gain power. She was really just a downtrodden nobody, being used as a slave by a Dothraki king in a way, and then moving on through there, gaining power, becoming queen of the Dothraki, then taking over, and you see this character arc from victim to basically tyrant. I think, for me personally, out of all of the nasty characters we see in Game of Thrones, she is the worst. And one of the things that really bugs me is that no one else sees it. How am I the only one?
I know what you're talking about. She does have that. She's got really kind of full of herself.
Absolutely.
That it's her right to take the throne.
That's something that I think most of the characters have.
Yeah.
To be fair.
But she's got sinister with it as well, hasn't she? In some of her behaviour.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of cold.
You look at Cersei, and what's her son's name? The one who was king for a while.
Joffrey.
Like they're psychopaths. They are as nasty as you can get. They will torture people for the fun of it. But if you look at their actions, who they are harming, if it's on a large scale, they're mostly harming their political opponents. Sometimes in a really nasty way, but still, it's their political opponents. And very occasionally, just for the heck of it, they'll kill a random peasant or something, just because it amuses them, which is not nice. It's terrible. But if you think about the only character in Game of Thrones who has, on a large scale, targeted, call them civilians or people who aren't involved in the actual Game of Thrones, people who aren't after political power, it's Daenerys when she murdered the entire population of some of the city-states, the city slave states that she went past on her way to the main continent. If you think about sort of crime and evil on a large scale, she is the only one who has killed thousands, tens of thousands of regular people whose only crime was living in a society structure that had slavery in it. To me,
Well, I think
she is the worst.
I think that her arc is that it's always been about, I'm going to rule the seven kingdoms, bend the knee, bend the knee, bend the knee, bend the knee. And then she will finally bend the knee to Jon Snow.
Maybe. Maybe.
I think that's where I could see her character.
Let me throw
going.
a quick theory out there from 0.45 in my chat. It's about 10 minutes ago. And this is brilliant. They're at Winterfell. They keep having all these scenes down in the tombs, right?
I already know where you're going.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
They can bring back the dead to life as White Walkers, and you got all these Starks down there in these tombs. Could they be White Walkers, all these historic characters that are in there, coming back to fight against the characters that we have in there at the moment?
And they've made such a big deal out of the crypts. Like, there is something going on down there, 100%. Like, even this last episode, the little girl comes up, should I go? Which way should I go? And he's like, which way do you want to go? And she's like, I'll defend the crypts.
Something
And
like
then,
that,
Lannister, Tyrion was like, I don't want to be in the crypts. She's like,
They're
no,
gonna
I
be
want
like
you in the
walking
crypts.
skeletons, though. They're hundreds of years old.
Some of them maybe not so much.
Ned's in 1,000 pieces. Ned doesn't even have a head.
Yeah.
So what's he going to look like when he comes back? I mean, so
Like a pogo stick with a head on it.
I think I see where that theory is coming from. I'm becoming more and more convinced the Night King's not even in Winterfell. Because if he was, you would have to deal with the fact that all these main characters that die are going to come back as White Walkers. And an easy way to get around that is the Night King's not even in Winterfell. So when they die, the Night King's not there to raise them back up.
Yeah, and I mean, even the crypt, I don't know how actually the sort of reanimation process works, but can he just sort of wave his hand and then people start rising out of the ground that have been buried there for years or decades?
We've never seen it used in that effect, but we've seen him raise his hand and bring back people who died recently.
Mm-hmm.
So we've never seen it used on somebody who's been dead for a really long time that I'm aware of. But we have seen it used on people who were literally just died.
Does it require like a touch or physical contact?
No, he just raises his hands like this. And I remember at Hardhome, he's sitting on the edge of the dock and he just goes like this and all the people raise up behind him.
Right. Okay. So maybe in theory they could do something with the crypt. It is interesting because now that you mention it, the crypt has featured an awful lot.
Yeah.
But would it just be then people sort of climbing out of those graves? Okay.
And then, you've got the people down there who are going to have to defend. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's the because Game of Thrones, it's all about something tragic's going to happen. So maybe the tragedy is maybe they do win this war in Winterfell, but everybody that's down that crypt dies.
Maybe. I guess we shall see. There wasn't actually though that happened, but we shall see. One of the things that I do want to say is that maybe in that short glimpse that we saw of Daenerys finding out that Jon was potentially her sort of half-brother and then really would supersede her as heir to the throne, she didn't react as negatively as I would have expected given how ambitious and quite cruel she's been up until now. Like, okay, she did say, oh, isn't it convenient that your best friend and your brother are the ones who are claiming that you actually own the throne and not me? So she's kind of already fighting against it, but I would have expected a more extreme reaction out of her.
Isn't she his
like that's
auntie?
treason?
Isn't she
something
his
like that,
auntie? But
yes.
we don't know that Jon necessarily wants the throne.
Right.
I mean,
Well, that's the other thing.
does he really want the throne?
Not as ambitious or as strongly as essentially everyone else in the entire show. No, he seems more level-headed and more ambivalent about it. He has accepted power and control when it was necessary and given to him rather than fighting for it. But we'll see that is sort of one of the things that interests me most now is seeing how does her character arc end, because she's like I say, she's annoyed me intensely because she is so evil and everyone just thinks she's marvelous, which annoys me even more. But how she will react to this is the key. Will she fight it? Will she try to do something? Will she accept it? Because we saw like a little bit of tension building between her and Arya as well. Not Arya, Sansa. because Sansa was saying, never ever will we in the North now bow down to anyone else again. So that's a challenge.
It almost makes you think that if Daenerys wins, that she's going to say the Seven Kingdoms are now independent. That's going to be, maybe that's her character arc, because she's already said the Iron Islands can be independent. That was part of their deal originally. And now Sansa's saying that we want to be independent. So maybe this is something where she says, we'll have a democracy. Because I think Tyrion's mentioned a democracy before, like a representative democracy of some sort. And yeah, you could see that when she finally does get where she's worked her entire life to get, that she takes it and she gives it back to the people.
It isn't unthinkable to think that her and Jon Snow will still get together, even though they're related. I mean, this is Game of Thrones.
Really odd. Oh, I mean, it could be, but
this is Game of Thrones. I mean,
there's a lot of workarounds. I think that they basically, you're not going to see them like be lovey-dovey again, and then Jon Snow's going to die and she's pregnant. That's my prediction. Is that Jon Snow saves the world, dies, Daenerys lives with a child that Jon Snow gave her.
And then is it Arya? She's going to say, look, I'm pregnant, and that, hang on, because he was son of Robert Baratheon, who was the king.
Yeah, he's the next in line, really.
Yeah,
unless if you're not going the Targaryen line, then
I mean, why did they sleep together if that wasn't a possibility?
Yeah, absolutely. And how crazy, go back to the first season when Ned goes to King's Landing with Arya, and she's like, and then they had that conversation, like he says, you're going to be a princess one day, you have to learn how to be a lady, you have to learn how to run a castle. And then she looks at him and she's like, that's not me. Yeah. How ironic would it be that Sansa wanted that her whole life, nothing more, and Sansa ends up not getting it, but Arya reluctantly ends up the queen.
And that's like harping back to season 1. Conversation with Ned. Yeah, it's mad, man.
Really interesting. I'll look forward to seeing that. So
I think next week's one is going to be really worth it.
It has to be. We've got a huge army. Yeah, there's a massive army of undead sitting in front of the sort of combined army of humans at Winterfell. That's going to be huge. What happens in King's Landing? Yeah, the interesting stuff happening. I almost can't wait. Going from, I almost stopped watching Game of Thrones in the early seasons because I found it so off-putting that none of the characters were likable to me. I really had to sort of force my way through it because I just thought, I hate all of these characters and really I want all of them to die.
I loved Robb Stark. And then he made the mistake of falling in love and forgetting about the war. That was his problem.
Was he not the one who executed his own nobleman and destroyed his own army because of it?
After he fell in love, he lost. He until up to the point where he met that girl, fell in love. He was the man. He was kicking the Lannisters' butt. He was making genius tactical moves. He was doing everything right. And then he met that girl, and it was just he made several blunders in a row. And Catelyn let Jaime go. That was the reason that all came apart. Was that Catelyn let Jaime go, and Jaime had murdered that dude's son.
Dude, his mum is responsible for this anyway. She went into that fort and she came back and said, we can all cross, but you're marrying, so-and-so's marrying so-and-so. And the other thing was, remember at that time, he was still trying to just get back to King's Landing to rescue his dad. And the goalpost moved. The goalpost moved where he became,
King in the North
in waiting. Yeah. And so things did change from that point.
But as was
big time portrayed.
What was talked about yesterday that was kind of important and kind of a nod to Catelyn Stark was she's the one who let Jaime go and said, Jaime, you take a vow to save my daughters. And so then he hooks up with Brienne, gets her armor, gets her outfitted, and then Brienne's who ends up actually saving Sansa. If it wasn't for Brienne, if it wasn't for Jaime setting up Brienne, then Sansa would not be alive right now. And
she's one of the more annoying characters to me, to be fair. But
Sansa?
Yeah,
I like Sansa.
From season 1 when she wanted to marry Joffrey, she's never, of all the Stark children, she was the one I never really.
She's also the most well equipped to actually win this thing, though. she's the one who's actually smart and will not do the honorable thing in order to win. You know, you think about her calling the Knights of the Vale, the honorable thing. How many people died because of that? If she would have just brought them out to begin with, how many more lives would have been saved? But would they have won?
To be fair, though, actually, she did go through hell with that Ramsay Bolton. Actually, that was pretty horrific.
Yeah.
And she was also married to Tyrion.
Yeah.
Yes. So there was also that. I also remember her being sort of a hostage for a while, or certainly captured. Yes. So in all, I suppose it's really enters a stage where all of the characters have parts that make them sympathetic in a way, where you can sort of sympathize with them, maybe even feel for them, and then there's also they've all kind of had their dark spots, which I think now that I've gone through the whole thing that's a great thing to have complex characters like that. Mm-hmm. That's something you don't normally see, and that's something that has won my respect over time.
Yeah.
Goody then. Well, hope you enjoyed that, I guess. A bit of an extra discussion. Next week should be pretty good because interesting things will be happening. And let's make that a thing. Let's just spend a few minutes here and there chatting about what the news is there.
I like it.
Of the people that have remained in my stream, some of them said you should do this every week.
Yeah, there we go. It is going to happen every week. I think it's worth sort of keeping it to the end. For one reason is that we always end up going down a rabbit hole and making it longer than we intend to. So if we put it at the end, there is sort of a bit of a finite time expenditure on it. And also, if people haven't caught up yet and don't want spoilers, that's when they can just sort of cut out and leave, and that's that. But thanks everyone who stuck around. Hope you did enjoy that, and join us again next week for more Rainbow Six Siege and Game of Thrones. We shall see you then.
Thanks for everyone for tuning in.